I'm sorry, I raised him the best way I knew how. I don't know where I went wrong.
You did fine. You did
Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. My name is Alyssa Karpenka, and I'm the event coordinator for McNally Robinson Booksellers in Saskatoon. This event is coming to you from Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis nations. Just to note that the event is being live streamed to our YouTube page, so please be aware of the webcam behind you. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the launch of The Pie, the Penny, and the Pyramid, a guide to entering the 21st century workforce by Gary Houston. Thank you to Gary for being here tonight and for working with us to create this event. Gary was raised in Saskatoon, starting on Clark Crescent, right behind McNally Robinson. He graduated from Walter Murray Collegiate in 1982, SIASST in 1983, and U of S with a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering in 1988 and an MBA in 1998. He has been a step, biological, foster, and adoptive parent and has a long history of mentoring young people in the workforce. He's worked across North America and elsewhere and currently works for Valero Energy. He is the founder of the Center for Workforce Entry, helping young people into the workforce regardless of their zip code or their GPA. He currently lives in California with his wife, their 2 youngest children, and their dog. We will now hear from Gary. Please give him a warm welcome.
Let me take the pulse of the room. So as you guys can see, my dancing career didn't work out. Thank you for being here. My name's Gary. I'm a Gemini. I look good in dim light. But I really want to thank, actually, I got to thank McNally Robinson for hosting the event. It was one of those things that it didn't matter where it happened until I thought about it, and it mattered. And it's kind of like when my oldest son turned 2 and I went to buy him a hockey jersey, and I was just going to run in and buy a hockey jersey. And I realized, no, the jersey that I buy him matters. And I had things like this. Then it was like Gretzky, Messier, Louis, and the name I put on his back actually mattered. And this, so when I went to do this, it's like, it matters. And I thought about McNally Robinson and what a great job it does of bringing books to people and kids and going, they take the spiral staircase up around the tree. And I just thought it was awesome. So I want to thank them for that. About 10 years ago, I was working for a company out of California, and I was traveling just a stupid amount. I was traveling North America and beyond. A lot of airplane rides, a lot of airport lounges, a lot of hotels I couldn't sleep in. And back home, we realized that we couldn't find anyone to work for us. Maybe it was me, but we just couldn't find young people to join the workforce. And I started talking to people that I knew, and they were having the same problem. And so I had too much time on sitting on airplanes and airports and airport lounges. And I started kind of putting it all together, and I ended up with a whole bunch of information. And then I still had more time, so I started writing it out. And then I started going around, and I was hoping people would tell me it was horrible. And then I could just put a bullet and throw it in the fire. But they just refused to. And then I started, okay, so now looks like it might become a book. So I ended up working with Friesen Press out of Victoria. I felt more comfortable working with a Canadian company. And they've been great, bringing me along this process. So that's kind of how I end up with a book. But while I was flying around, what I was really wondering is, if I could talk to young people, what would I say that would make them want to join the workforce? Because what we seemed to be getting was we'd get kids coming into the workforce, and they were on 2 trajectories. One was they were headed straight to the presidential suite in 4 to 6 weeks. They knew everything and they had it for us. And we were really dumb for not solving all the problems beforehand. The other group was really kind of down on the idea of working, and they didn't really see a future. And they thought they were going to get taken advantage of, that they weren't going to make any money, and they weren't going to live a good life. And I started thinking about, and this is really where my roots from Saskatchewan come from. And I know so many people that are leading good lives. And it really didn't matter. They don't have to go to Stanford or UT. They just kind of enter the workforce and they lead really good lives. And they have families, and they have cars and trucks and boats and cabins, and they're leading a great life. how could I get this? How could I communicate this to the young people? And as I mentioned, I've had a lot of kids, and they all know that I don't know Jack. Well, they all think I don't know Jack, but I do know Jack Seal. He was a teacher at Walton Army, and he gave me a love of history. And I knew the kids wouldn't listen to me, so I thought I better go back in history. So I thought about Aristotle, and I thought, well, Aristotle had this idea that you could start average and adjust from there. It's called the doctrine of the golden mean. And that just suits me because I'm a man of moderation. I had to say that.
Oh, boy, this is gonna be a long night.
So he had this idea that we could do that, and you really start off average and then you adjust from there, and you can become excellent. You can find someone and you can copy it. Cynical view is you fake it to make it. Optimistic view is you learn from somebody. You find a moral exemplar in the workplace and they teach you, and then you adjust your behavior from there, and you can lead a good life. And I thought that was a pretty good foundation. And don't worry, I'll skip ahead to the 20th century. Okay, I know.
I'm like, you're great for us.
But you got to get home. We got to get you home. So anyhow, I went to Dr. Abraham Maslow, and Maslow's a 20th century psychologist, and he has this thing that life is a series of platforms. It's called the hierarchy of needs. We get it sort of in psych classes. What he believed is to lead a good life, that you really have to fix one platform before you can move up to the next platform. And it starts out with physiological. You need food, you need heat, you need water, you need salt. And then once you got that, you can worry about having walls and windows. And once you've got that, you can worry about family and belonging. And really, that's where most of us starting off in River Park. I had that. I didn't have to worry about walls, windows, food. I mean, we can talk about my mother's pork chops and mushroom soup, but I'm not going to do that right now. You're on camera. So anyhow, and then once you've got your family, then you start worrying about self-esteem and how you feel good about yourself. And then you can go self-actualization, which is kumbaya, sit on top of the mountain, everything is perfect. You have a dog and it doesn't poop or pee on the rug. And that became the pyramid to talk to the kids about. And when I do a lot of speaking to high schools, and I talk to the kids and I ask them, here's $200. What would you do with it? Don't tell me. And then we teach them Maslow. And then we come back and really we ask them, okay, what'd you do with it? And I don't even answer or ask for the answers anymore, because the two number one answers, earbuds, shoes. That's where it goes. And we talk to them about, okay, that's all self-esteem. Now that's fine. That's wrong. Kids are smart, right? If you're lucky enough to teach them every day, you know how smart they are. But the idea is you can give them some guidance on how they make decisions, and so that they can hopefully make better ones. And they can realize that if they hop into the workforce, they can kind of get up to that family, and they can get up to self-esteem, maybe put a little away for their kumbaya moments. So then really what we wanted to do was help them with their decision making. And there's a fellow by the name of Dr. Daniel Kahneman. And actually, I noticed his book is over on the wall over there, Thinking Fast and Slow. And it's a phenomenal book. Dr. Kahneman is a Nobel Prize winner in economics. He actually won his Nobel Prize for, he won his Nobel Prize in economics. He's actually a psychologist, and it's behavioral economics. So how we make our decisions spending money, how we make decisions about winning and losing. And so he talks a lot about that, and we try and help young people sort of understand that their decisions, are gonna help them out a lot. And what I like about, I call him the Kahn, because I got tired of typing his name, is there's only two types of thinking. And for me, that's good, because 1 and 2 I can understand. If I get to 3, I'm probably gonna start screwing up. And type 1 thinking is quick and immediate, and it's good enough most of the time. Type 2 thinking is analytical and takes a lot of energy, and we don't tend to do it enough. So type 1 thinking is like what we use when our wives say, hey, I'm gonna go buy a new sofa. And we say, yes, dear. Type 1 thinking. Type 2 more analytical thinking is, what a great idea. I was thinking I would get a fishing rod. Thinking, you know, the difference there. And we rely on type 1 too much. And we talk to the kids about 11 o'clock at night and midnight, we tend to use only type 1 thinking. Type 2 thinking maybe should have been, if only we had known, right? A little bit too late. But that's what we want the kids just to start thinking about. And we, Dr. Kahneman has some other things that we try and make available to the kids about availability and rules of thumb that we all use and we all make mistakes. Because kids like to know that we make mistakes. So we bring him in, and then we talk to them also about some mental health issues, because that is where we're at today. And it turns out a fellow by the name of Dr. Neil Levitsky out of Toronto is a psychologist, and he kind of has distilled down the negative emotions. He's distilled them down to there only being a few. So I thought, well, okay, let's make I called it SAGs. But basically, we can take all our negative emotions from most of it. And they're either sadness, anger, anxiety, guilt, or shame and embarrassment. And to give the youth just an idea, because what we were seeing happen is they come to work for 2 weeks and then they leave and they're gone and they never come back. So what we want to do is give them some tools to say, okay, you had a bad day. Now, which one was it? And how long is it going to last? So sadness is generally just a loss. Anger is something unfair. Anxiety is fear of the unknown. Guilt is you did something wrong. And shame is you did something wrong that people know about. And then I put a silent E on there. Yeah, okay, I broke the rule. Like, that's the first. Embarrassment is you broke the social norm, which I do daily. You guys mostly know that. And then the idea is we tell the youth to, okay, now score it out of 100 and pick a time frame. And now deal with it. So if is this really, you know, anxiety over a performance review, it's going to be for 2 or 3 weeks until you have your performance review. And once you do that, you can kind of just put it away and sort of deal with it. And hopefully that allows them to be resilient in the workplace and stay. The other thing, we have a pretty adult conversation about wealth killers. And again, there's 5 of them. And drugs, divorce, child support, single parenthood, and unemployment. And really not a lot of people talk to them about that, but they hurt well. We spend a lot of time talking about drug testing for kids and for youth coming into the workplace, but they need to be able to pass the drug test. And that is, I tell you what, in the high school environment, those are some pretty interesting conversations. And it's not only just with the students sometimes, but the idea that now students, I mean, if you're going to work at a refinery where I work, you know, it's a given. And so for some of these youth, they have no idea. So really, by telling them, we hope we're opening up more jobs for them. So in general, the book is meant to be a gift. There's not going to be a lot of 17-year-olds that are going to be running in here buying this. But what it is the thinking was we could come up with a book and you could buy it for a niece, a nephew, grandkid, whatever, instead of a gift card. Last longer, you can use it as a beer coaster. I mean, you know, uses are endless. But also it's you know, it's a book that's meant to be read in small chunks. And I really try and sell it, just read it in 5-minute chunks for people who aren't readers. And I have kids that struggle with their homework, and we use a timer and we say, hey, just read it for 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden we find they go beyond it to get a little further, but they need to know an endpoint. So if they open up a book and think, I got to read this, they're thinking they got to read the whole book, just 5 minutes at a time. And we put a lot of worksheets and tables and charts and all that for them to fill out in there. And that's, again, to be interactive, but also if they do it, they can fill it out and throw it in a drawer and they can see what it looks like in 10 years. And really, what we're hoping is that we're gonna teach them that there's a work family out there for them. And for those of us, I mean, when we work, there's our family, but then there's the people that we've been working with for 30 and 40 years. And those family bonds are huge. And a lot of kids that maybe don't feel they come from the best family, you want to tell them, hey, there's a work family for you. Let's get you in the workplace. Let's get you there. And actually, it's where a lot of relationships come from. So in high schools, I talk about that because why work? Of course, money, but also it's a great way to get a date. I'm really, I think I can deal with high school kids. They're taller than me, but emotionally I might be on their level. So that's sort of the idea of the book. I also want to talk about because the book is really built around the Center for Workforce Entry. So as you heard, I mean, we're foster parents, we're now adoptive parents, but I've worked a lot with emancipating fosters. And it seems to me that our HR, our recruiting, when we're trying to hire people, hasn't really come a long way since Shackleton. Shackleton is the dude who went to the South Pole where he tried in about 1908. And he put up an ad. There's some, you can go on the internet, there's fights about it. But his ad was men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete danger. Safe return doubtful. Constant danger. Honor and recognition in event of success. That's what he said, and he got his crew. Now, some they argue they can't find it in the newspaper. Some say he went around and he nailed it to the dogs, and that's how he recruited his people. Now, what we do is we just throw it up on Indeed. We need people. It's on Indeed. Well, working with fosters, I've learned a lot and listened. So part of what I do is I also talk to businesses about what I've learned from the kids, and it's been quite interesting. So we throw it up on Indeed or wherever we throw it up. Now, these kids that have been raised online, completely online, funny thing about them, what they value is human connections. So when I learned this lesson, I got them to build a resume and go in and say, I'd like a job. And they got told, go apply online. The amazing thing is how many kids don't have access to that. But some of the questions I got, because I started sitting down and filling out applications with these young people, and it was fascinating. Because first of all, first thing you're asked for, their name. Well, what have they been told not to put in the internet? Their name. And basically, they can't get through the application process unless they put their name in and hit next. Well, they want to see the whole application because they want to know what they're signing up for. They don't just want to go back. Second question, address. This was neat and illuminating. Okay, yeah, I don't know what to put because I live with my mom Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then I live with my grandparents Fridays, Saturdays, but my dad is moving into town and I don't know his address yet, but I'm going to go live with him. So what should I put as an address? The reality is it doesn't matter. But to them, when we're trying to get them into the workforce, it matters because they don't have anyone there that's coaching them along. So we were in Myrtle Beach in November, went into a McDonald's, and there was paper applications and pencils. And they're going back and came back to California. We were running, this is how I feed my kids. I'm not a really good parent. I already knew that. But there was, again, paper applications and pencils and a couple of managers. So I asked them, why are you doing this? And what he said was, we realized we were missing too many potential candidates. There's too many because of those reasons, because they don't know, there's too much anxiety, they don't have access. And so this is what I've been talking to companies about. Now, the other part of this is the foster kids. And, I don't mind being an advocate for them. So in Saskatchewan, I looked at some numbers and there's 2,790 foster kids in foster care. 560 of them are over the age of 50. Now, then I realized that's from 2011. There's now 4,500 kids in foster care. And I've been a foster parent, so I think the world of social workers. I've seen some of the stuff that they put up with, what they do. Okay, what they aren't good at, they're not employment agencies. They aren't. They've got too much other stuff. They're keeping those kids safe. So we have 550 kids 10 years ago in Saskatchewan who basically have a 70% chance that they're going to end up incarcerated because they're male. 70%, and I'm using some rough North American statistics. 70% chance that they'll have a child before they're 21. Their chance of graduating college, about 3%. And statistic from the States is about 20% of the prison population was at one time in foster care. So my message to the businesses and the companies and in general is that we got to reach in and go grab these kids. We got to go get them. They don't necessarily have a path to the workforce. And if we're waiting for the system to put them into the workforce, to be honest, and again, world of respect for the social workers. But all they have is a nail, everything's a hammer. So they're generally telling the kids to get more education and become social workers. That really isn't a fit. And if we think about the trauma these kids go through, they're called adverse childhood experiences, then every time they go through one of those, they fall further and further behind. And so when they get out, they're just kind of too far behind to really expect them to do well in school. The other part of this, and I've learned this from talking to especially young men at some of the high schools, and that they're bored in school. They don't feel it's doing them any good. And I'd really like to see them get credit for working part-time. And because really we're in a race, we want them in the workforce. You can think of what the option is to the workforce. And I'd really like to see it in high schools that we put the honor roll students up on the wall, put the sports teams up on the wall. What about the kids that are working part-time to support their families? What about those ones? And can we give them credit and can we celebrate it? And then does that help them matriculate? And then they're walking out into the workforce with these high school diplomas. So that's kind of what this is all about. I appreciate you guys taking the time. I know you have lots of other things you'd rather be doing. And with that, thank you very much. Any questions? Really, it would be really appreciated because I've spoken enough.
I'll start. We do have one from our online audience, and afterwards, if you will put up your hand, I'll bring you the microphone to make sure everyone can hear your question. So from Sally, we have, what can parents do better to prepare their children to be realistic about the future?
What can parents, you want to answer that? I'm kidding. What can that's well, I don't know, buy the book. We appreciate it. But I think really, you know, it is realistic. It's actually about there's a great life out there. Again, look around. There's a great life to be led, and I just think we're a little too down on it. And you don't have to cure cancer on day one, although we'd appreciate it. But just get out there and help. So, you know, there's and I think you should sell the WorkFamily. I think kids need to know about the WorkFamily, that it's out there, it's waiting, and it wants them to succeed. It really wants them to succeed because we want their help. We need their help. I wonder who that Sally girl is. Nice girl, but she's got no taste in men. You, the good-looking fellow.
At the microphone. So you, Gary, you talked to, or you wrote your book, you talked to the students. Are you able to go and speak to the agencies, the employers and the executives and the HR people and what they were response to you?
Thank you. I do on both formally and informally. So down in LA, speaking to a group board of directors of the entire paving association, it's a pretty large organization, and it's good because some of those companies are now starting to put computers in their foyers, in their entrances, and they make sure that there's someone there to help someone who comes in and wants to apply online. They've really learned that you don't just throw them out and say, go apply online, because we're just losing too many applicants. Thank you.
Don't really need this, but Gary, Jim and I have both read your book. I bought it from Joan in 5-minute increments. And Jim said, every high school kid should read this book. And I said, no, high school kids aren't going to read it. Every teacher should read that book. And I think that's where the book belongs in the education system, because there's a lot of good stuff.
Well, thank you for that. It's been kind of surprising to people that have actually grabbed onto it, because I did try to focus it at an upper high school audience. Although there are some things about the organization that I think is more college kind of bound. And you know, teachers and parents are very well. Look at you, you're so kind to say nice things about it. I mean, yeah, it fits, and basically. Our children discount what we say, so now you can blame me. And I'm used to being blamed. I got blamed for everything. I grew up. Oh, Gary's fault.
No, it was Dave's.
It's true.
I know you got to promote it.
More things change, right?
That's-
Your train of thought. Go.
But I mean, I'd love for teachers that, and there are teachers that are buying it for their classrooms. That's kind of, you know, and that's really humbling when I hear that. Because again, yeah, their kids aren't going to buy this for themselves.
We have another online question from Grace, saying, is someone working full-time and in school full-time, do you have any advice on how to balance it?
Enjoy it. And really, you know, we talk to young people, there's no law that says you only work 40 hours a week. And they need to hear this. There's no law that says that you can only have one job. I have several jobs. I mean, you have so much energy when you're young. When we talk to kids about being bored, well, if you're bored, what work? I mean, 4 a.m. seemed like a perfectly good work time in my 20s. And so, you know, balancing that out is really just enjoy it. You know, I haven't met a young person that can't handle both. They're so smart. They have so much talent, so much energy. Now's the time of music. So when you get older, like some of these people, I'm pointing at the first row, not the second row. You know, it gets a little more difficult.
We have another online from Joe saying, Gary, how do we get this book to the kids that really need it?
There is the rub. We are we're making it available in as many places as we can. And it's kind of moving at a good steady pace. I say this is never going to be a bestseller. This is not a Stephen King novel. But what we hope is that this book has some staying power and will be around for quite a while to help young people out.
Your ad in Century, Alberta, about 10 books.
Are you speaking into the microphone?
No. Okay, here I go. Just as a point, in your ad, in Sundry, Alberta, bought 10 books. Those 10 books went to the school there. So they're being well distributed as advocates.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
That's
It's pretty incredible that we get, you know, teachers that are hockey players that are using it and buying it and becoming more. It's getting out there. Yes.
I was interested in what you said about the work family and that whole idea. And I'm wondering if over COVID, and with so many more people at home, if you're finding that that has been a bit more challenging.
That's a great question. And yes, it has. And then especially for disadvantaged youth, that really knocked them down. And so getting out there and trying to get them again into the workforce. And again, so it's really needing to take even more steps to go get them. And I'm more than willing to help out any employer that wants to reach in, because it is a process. It's not easy. But I will, let me give you this quick one. There was a young man and he had been taken, he was, and I think I'm far enough away. So he was in foster care and he was a great kid and he was in Sacramento and COVID hit. He got moved to Fresno. That's 3 hours. Okay, he's there. And he wanted a job. He wanted a job because he wanted out of the house. And he was clean, he could pass a drug test. And I was out and they asked him to talk to me. I get these calls, we got a kid, will you talk to him? Of course I will. So I talked to him and I'm like, very cool. So this has become what we talk about at business dinners, workforce. It's a very big topic. So chatting about it and then talked to this guy that was over in the Bay Area. And the guy called me the next week and he said, hey, what we talked about last week, and I'm immediately frightened. Like, what did I say? What did I agree to? But he said, that kid, I know someone in Fresno and they will hire him. And this company reached out, it was a demolition company, and they were going to put him on the wash rack. They were going to put him in the union. He was going to make a very good living within 5 years. And the president of the company wrote a letter to the young man saying, hey, we got you. And it was a work family letter. He didn't say join our work family, but he said, look, join us, benefits, you'll find friends, we take care of each other. And then the kid went dark. We lost him. And it took about 2 or 3 months to find him. He'd been moved again and was. And so that ship had sailed. But what that one letter did was by the time I hooked up again with that young man, he had got himself a job at the city. He had bought a car and he was on his way. And that is the effect. That's the return on this reaching out. And I think especially after COVID, and I have so much faith in our Saskatchewan values, but values sort of all over of companies, if they know about it, will reach out and we'll go get it. And, again, I've had phone calls like, how do I find my way through the system and get to these young people? Because it's not easy, right? It's not the easy one. It's not type 1 thinking. It takes some effort.
Gary, and I don't need that. How do you get a kid? And I mean, we all know those kids. They don't want to work. But how do you, lots of families have kids that just want to stay in the basement. They don't want to work. How do you do it?
I trick them.
How do you trick them?
I mean, basically, it's like coaching kids for hockey. Is that you trick them into working really hard. You can't just sit there and say work hard. So really, that's why when I talk to high school students, I'm talking to them about relationships. Like that's where you should go today, and give them a few other benefits. They have to see the benefits. And if they can't see it, that's really, there are those kids that are just going to be stubborn and not do it. But I really would trick them. And I talk to the kids I talk to. I sell McDonald's. Some people think I work for McDonald's. One of the best things I can see on a resume is McDonald's. McDonald's, and when I'm talking to these kids, I say, look, McDonald's tells me so much about you because you can cool your coolness and you can work with people, a team, you can show up on time and you can put up with the public. People like my family. And that tells me so much. So I just tell them, if you get McDonald's on your resume, that is a ticket forward. And it's pretty simple to do. I know that doesn't help them get them out of the basement,
But you know what I find? Kids don't want to work at McDonald's. They don't want to work at McDonald's.
It's so true. And that's why I'm selling them on it, because that's why it tells you so much about them. If they'll cool their coolness, that is my term with them when I'm speaking to them, cool your coolness, go get a job and be something. Because, you know, I get calls from people, you know, this young man, he's a good young man, he wants to be a welder. Can you get him a job welding? No. I can get him a job sweeping floors. And then the guys in the shop will teach him how to weld. That's kind of how I learned. And I was willing, I worked with this phenomenal group of people that taught me stuff, and they took care of me and they raised me. And didn't make me any taller, but you know, that's really all we can do. I mean, it is, you know, a thirsty horse, right? You can lead it to water if it doesn't take a drink. But most of them, I think if we paint it correctly, they'll dive in. They will. There's obviously obstacles that are there. They want to be cool. Something I gave up on at a very young age. You didn't have to nod so quickly. It really hurts. But you know, we got to sell them on it. That's really it. That's all we got. Oh dear. And then fear came into Gary's eyes.
Hello. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Is this book going to be offered in audio format?
Yes.
Thank you.
I just finished the audio book, and let me tell you, it was exhausting. So I just got back the edits, so I have to touch up the edits, and there is an accompanying PDF that goes with it that has all the charts and everything, so that they can see that combo package. Thanks.
Kindle?
Yes, it's already there.
I have a question from Millie online. Are there future plans to create a curriculum for high school effective skills classes?
I'm willing to work with anybody to sort of get this out there. I think in terms of the education system, I need people that are smarter than me. You know, not being part of the education system. And it's interesting because some schools just welcome me and they call me back and they're like, can you come? We want you to speak to the entire senior class. Cool, got it. And then some are like, we got this covered. Look, you little short engineers, stay over there. So whatever works. It works.
Do we have any more questions from the audience here?
Because if you don't ask questions, we'll have to stand around and talk to each other.
All right, Gary, is there anything more you'd like to speak on before I let you get to your friends and fans?
I really just want to say thank you for your time and for making the effort to come out and listen about this. It's really just a growing conversation. And thank you very much.
All right, I'll just say a quick thank you to Gary Houston again for being with us tonight. He will be sticking around to sign books at the table there. And of course, we have copies of The Pie, The Penny, and The Pyramid for sale on that table and over there as well. You are welcome to get your copies signed before you purchase them. Just make sure to stop the cash desk on your way out the door.
So one thing about that, and just goes again, so some people call it TP. And so that was my publisher, and they were calling it TP. And I started thinking maybe they don't think it's so good because they're calling it toilet paper. And so I realized when maybe I wasn't the best title, but I guess it's too late now.
So what does the title mean?
The Pie, the Penny, and the Pyramid. We want to teach kids to think about their pie in life. We want them to think about divvying up people, because kids tend to see things as black and white. So we want them to really evaluate people. We invite them to divvy up their parents and say, what is mom made of? Which that can be interesting. And all the different things that go into mom, or their best friends, and what their best friends are made of. And to realize it's not all black and white as they go into the workforce. We want them to divvy up their time because we want them to give a better average. We want them just to realize that doing 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there can really help them. and money. And money is how we get into making better decisions with it. So that's the pie. Pyramid is Maslow's. And then the penny is just the money. That's what. And if I would have known it was toilet paper, I would have something different. And now I realize what I just did to myself. Yeah, the toilet paper book. No one ever said it was smart. Thank you very much.
Thank you and have a good evening.
So I was shooting for 40 minutes.